Good afternoon, students. So, in the last lectures, we have discussed the types of polarizations, and we have observed basically there are three types of polarizations: electronic polarizations, which occurs for non-polar dielectrics; ionic polarization, which occurs for ionic materials; and orientation polarization occurring for polar molecules. And out of these three, we have estimated the polarizability for electronic polarization. And just a brief or summary of that electronic polarization, which is occur electronic polarization occurs only in case of non-polar materials. So we know that in case of non-polar materials, the center of gravity of positive and negative charge coincide with each other. That means in absence of any external electric field, there is no question of dipoles. So if we assume an atom of radius a and atomic number z, then for that atom we can estimate the electronic polarizability, and the process is very simple. Here the assumptions we have taken was called classical assumptions, where it is assumed that the whole electronic charge, that means all the electrons, are distributed uniformly throughout the atom. So all the electrons distributed throughout this atom, so that we can estimate the volume charge density of the electron cloud. And if we know the volume charge density of electron cloud, then for any portion of that electron cloud, if we know any portion of the electron cloud, that means if we know the volume of any small portion of the electron cloud, we can find out what is the amount of charge present within that small volume. Now, whenever external field is applied, so here there is no external field applied. So in the absence of electric field, we observe that center of gravity of electron cloud and center of gravity of the positive charge coincide with each other. But when external field is applied, then that field, the electric field, tries to push the nucleus and electron cloud apart from each other. That means it pushes the nucleus in one direction and repel the electron cloud in opposite direction, so that the center of gravity of electron cloud and center of gravity of nucleus are separated from each other. So now you observe they are separated. More amount of electric field, more will be the separation. And what is the force acting on the electron cloud due to this externally applied electric field E? That force will be the charge into the electric field. Here, if I consider the electron cloud, the charge is minus ZE, so force is minus ZE. So due to this force, due to this externally applied electric field, the force created on that atom, and due to that force, the center of gravity of electron cloud is separated from that of nucleus. Now, whenever the positive and negative charges are separated from each other, whenever the positive and negative charges are separated from each other, then the first thing what happens is that the Coulomb force between that positive and negative charge comes into play. And Coulomb force tries to restore the previous position. That means previously center of gravity of nucleus and electron cloud were coinciding with each other, and the Coulomb force tries to get back that situation. So what is that Coulomb force acting between this nucleus and electron cloud? Now the problem is that here the nucleus is within the electron cloud. Though the centers are separated, we observe here, though the centers are separated from each other, still the nucleus is within the electron cloud. Then, as per Gauss law, that part, only that portion of that electron cloud will be active, or only that portion of the electron cloud will participate in that process, which are included within a sphere of radius same as the separation between the nucleus and the electron cloud. That means we are assuming that due to application of the external field, this is the separation between the nucleus and the electron cloud, which is D. That is the separation between nucleus and electron cloud. Separation means separation between the centers, center of gravity of nucleus and electron cloud. That is the separation. So as per Gauss law, only the charges included within a sphere of radius d, this amount of charge, this will take part in that process. And what is that amount of charge? That can be estimated easily because we know the volume charge density of electron cloud. So from that, the charge can be estimated, and if we know the charge, the Coulomb force acting between that portion of the electron cloud and nucleus, that portion of the electron cloud and nucleus can be estimated. So these two forces is now known. One force is due to the application of external field, then other force is the Coulomb force. So when equilibrium will reach, these two opposing forces balance each other. So when at equilibrium these two forces balance each other, then we can write these two are same, the magnitude of these two forces are same because they are acting opposite to each other. So from that, the separation or displacement between the electron cloud and the nucleus can be estimated, and from that we can find out the induced dipole moment and hence the electronic polarizability. And we observe that electronic polarizability is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught AQ. Now 4 pi epsilon naught is constant, so actually the electronic polarizability is proportional to AQ. That means it is proportional to volume of the atom. More the volume of the atom, more the radius of the atom, more will be the electronic polarizability. So electronic polarizability we observe only depends on the atomic radius. It doesn't depend on any other quantity. Next was the ionic polarization, and ionic polarization occurs for ionic compounds like those materials where already ions are created. That, and when there are ions, hopefully you understand that there will be a separation between the positive and negative ions. So there is already dipoles in absence of any external electric field. Now whenever we apply electric field from outside, then that separation between the positive and negative charges increases. And our dipole moment in the direction of the externally applied electric field is created. And that polarizability is called ionic polarizability. And the last one was orientational polarization, which occurs in case of polar molecules. And what are polar molecules again? Those molecules where in absence of electric field also, the positive and negative charges are separated from each other. So even in absence of externally applied electric field, positive and negative charges are separated from each other. That means there are inherent dipoles in those materials. But those dipoles are randomly oriented. Therefore, the vector sum of the dipole moment is 0. So though dipoles are there, the net effective dipole moment is 0. So whenever externally applied electric field is supplied, then those dipoles are oriented, and that's why it is called orientational polarization. So those dipoles are oriented in the direction of the electric field and aligned, and that type of polarization is called orientational polarization, and the corresponding polarizability is called orientational polarizability. And if you observe, the derivation is not required. We observe that orientational polarizability can be written in this form, where P is the dipole moment, Kb is Boltzmann constant, we have used it so many times, and T is temperature in absolute scale. And please note down that this is the only type of polarization. Orientational polarization is the only type of polarization which depends on temperature. You observe that orientational polarizability is inversely proportional to temperature. It is inversely proportional to temperature. That means if we increase temperature, the orientational polarization will be decreased. That means due to high temperature, the orientational polarization is hampered. Ionic or electronic polarization doesn't depend on temperature. Whatever be the temperature given on the material, the electronic or ionic polarization will not be altered. On the other hand, orientation polarization completely depends on the temperature. Because if you increase the temperature, that means you are supplying external thermal energy. And due to the externally applied thermal energy, you are giving some extra energy to the material, and that extra energy makes the molecules vibrate. And due to the vibration, actually, the process of orientation, actually here what happening, due to electrical field applied on those material, the dipoles are oriented, dipoles are rotated in the direction of the electric field. That rotation will be hampered due to supplied heat energy. And that's why orientational polarizability is inversely proportional to temperature applied. So these are the three types of polarizations. Now, if you are asked that find out the polarizability of a monoatomic gas, find out the polarizability of non-polar molecule, find out the polarization of a non-polar gas, for all these things, find out the polarizability of non-polar molecule, find out the polarizability of non-polar gas, find out the polarizability of monoatomic gas. For all this type, you have to find out electronic polarizability. That's all. You have to find out electronic polarizability. Now, if the question is find out the polarizability for polyatomic gas, so what would be your answer? Now, in case of gas, the separation between the molecules is very large, and that's why we can ignore the interaction between the dipoles. So if we can ignore the interaction between dipoles, then total polarization can be written as the sum of electronic, ionic and orientation polarization. Total polarization, when we apply electric field on any polyatomic gas, then the total polarization is just the sum of the three types of polarization: electronic polarization, ionic polarization and orientational polarization. Now, we know that polarization vector P equals to N alpha E in general. N is the number of molecules, number of dipoles per unit volume. Alpha is the polarizability, E is the applied field. Therefore, for each we can write N alpha E into E, N alpha I into into E, N alpha O into E. So, where alpha E, alpha I, alpha O are the electronic, ionic and orientation polarization. Now, you have already estimated alpha E. So, instead of alpha E, you can write 4 pi epsilon naught AQ. Alpha I remain as it is. And in case instead of alpha O, you can write P square by 3 kBT. So that's how we can write the total polarization. Therefore, what is the total polarizability? Total polarizability is only this portion. So total polarizability is this one, or you can write it as 4 pi epsilon naught AQ plus alpha I plus P square by 3 kBT. So that will be your answer for total polarizability or polarizability for polyatomic gas. So if the question is just changed into this form, that find out the total polarizability for polyatomic gases, that would be your answer. You have to find out again, for if it is a broad question, you have to find out the expression of alpha E, then you have to add this thing. If it's a short type question, 1 marks, then 1 or 2 marks, then you just need not to find out the expression of alpha E, you use this expression in the solve. That will be sufficient. This particular equation is called Langevin-Debye equation. So if you are asked describe Langevin-Debye equation, then you have to just write it down. That's all. Just be aware of that name of that equation. It is called Langevin-Debye equation. Now, whenever we have talked about the way to form the polarized material, that means how polarization occurs, then the first thing we have said that whether the material is ionic or non-polar or polar, you have to supply some electric field. In presence of any externally applied electric field, either dipoles are created, like in case of non-polar, or dipoles are oriented, like in case of polar, or dipoles are more separated, like in case of ionic materials, and all the dipoles or a large portion of the dipoles are aligned in the direction of the electric field. And then we call that material is polarized because positive and negative charges are now separated and aligned in the direction of the electric field. Now, if we increase the electric field, what will happen? If we increase the electric field more and more, then more and more amount of dipoles are created, or more and more amount of dipoles are oriented. That means more amount of polarization will occur. And that's why we always say polarization is proportional to electric field applied. That's why we always say that polarization is proportional to electric field applied. So that means if we increase the applied electric field, more will be the amount of polarization. But what happens if the electric field is very large? If the electric field is very large, then it can tear an electron out of that atom. If the electric field is very large, that means the force on an electron will be very large. Force means Q into E. If the electric field is very large, that force will be very large also. Then it can break the covalent bond or any other type of bond, and an electron can be made free. So if you can tear an electron out of an atom, then the atom loses an electron, and what the atom becomes? It becomes an ion. Suppose you have helium gas. If you remove an electron from the helium, then it will be He plus. So it becomes an ion. So if the applied electric field is large enough, it can pull the atom of the electron. It can pull the electron of an atom away from the atom itself. That means it can pull the atoms of the dielectric apart and make it ionized. This phenomenon is called dielectric breakdown of the material. So dielectric breakdown occurs when the atom becomes ion. When an atom of the dielectric material becomes an ion due to the high amount of electric field applied. That phenomenon is called dielectric breakdown. And the maximum amount of electric field, the maximum value of electric field for which the dielectric can withstand without breaking down is called dielectric strength of the material. That means suppose you have a dielectric material and you are supplying some amount of electric field onto it. More the electric field, more amount of polarization you are getting. So suppose initially you are supplying 500 volt per meter, then 600, 1000, you are continuously increasing it. 5 into 10 to the power 3 to 5 into 10 to the power 4, 5 into 10 to the power 5. Suppose when the electric field applied is 5 into 10 to the power 6 volt per meter, still the dielectric can withstand. Dielectric can withstand without breaking down. That means still there is no question of formation of ion. Only due to application of the electric field, you are getting more amount of polarization. But suppose after 5 into 10 to the power 6 volt per meter, after 5 into 10 to the power 6 volt per meter, the dielectric material starts breaking down. That means the atoms of the dielectric material start becoming ions. Then the maximum value of electric field will be 5 into 10 to the power 6 volt per meter, up to which the dielectric could withstand without breaking down. So that is the dielectric strength. The maximum value of electric field for which dielectric can withstand without breaking down is called dielectric strength of the material. So what is dielectric breakdown and dielectric strength? Dielectric breakdown is a phenomenon So when the electric field is large enough, then it can make an atom ion. That means it can pull an atom of the dielectric apart and make it ionized. This phenomena is called dielectric breakdown. And the maximum value of electric field for which dielectric can withstand without breaking down is called dielectric strength of the material. So these are only two definitions we have, and other thing is dielectric laws. Now generally whenever we have discussed about supplying electric field, we assume that electric field is supplied in the form of, say, battery. That means it is direct electric field you are supplying. Direct electric field means the amount of electric field, the magnitude of electric field remains almost constant. That means if you are supplying, say, 500 volt per meter, it may fluctuate around 500 volt per meter, but there is no question of minus 500 volt per meter there, because it is direct field you are supplying. Now, instead of that, if you supply some alternating electric field, that means if a dielectric is placed inside an alternating electric field, what will happen then? Now you are supplying this type of electric field. It's an alternating electric field. The electric field is not constant. It is, so you say this electric field is now not constant. It's changing not its magnitude as well as direction. So this region we have positive electric field, this region we have negative electric field. So the value of electric field is changing, and after this is with time, after certain time, so after this time interval, the electric field is negative up to this. That means for a half time period, it is positive, for half time period it is negative, and the process continues. For that type of thing, for that type of alternating electric field, polarization occurs. So if you place your material, so suppose this is your material, so this is your dielectric, it is placed inside this type of electric field. So when the electric field is positive, suppose this is the direction of the electric field. When the electric field is up to this region, that means it is positive, but value is changing, but it has a particular direction. Say this is the direction. So when this is the direction of the electric field supplied, then the whatever be that type of material, but ultimately due to application of the electric field, this is the direction along which dipoles will be aligned. If they are non-polar material, then dipoles will be created and aligned. If they are these polar molecule, then dipoles will be oriented in this direction and aligned. So point is, due to this electric field, in this direction, dipoles will be oriented in the same direction. But now the problem comes after a certain time, after this time, electric field will be negative. So now electric field is negative. So in the next interval, what we'll observe, this is the direction of electric field. That means whatever dipoles were oriented in this direction, now it needs to be reoriented in the opposite direction. And hopefully you understand that whenever you want to rotate these dipoles in 180 degree, you need to rotate it 180 degree. So you need to do some work. So whenever this dipole tries to be rotated in opposite direction, some amount of energy is required. Where from their dipole gets that energy? It gets the energy from the supplied electric field. That's why a particular amount of energy, a part of the externally supplied energy, is utilized for this movement of the dipoles, and that amount of energy is actually lost for us. We cannot gain any amount of energy. We cannot get some positive thing from this rotation. So this will treat us the loss of energy, because we cannot utilize this energy. Whatever energy is used for this rotation of dipoles due to rotation of the electric field, due to the reversing nature of the electric field, So that amount of energy is actually lost for us. We cannot utilize that energy. And that energy loss is called dielectric loss. We call it as dielectric loss. So whenever a dielectric is placed inside an alternating electric field, this occurs only for alternating field. So if whenever a dielectric material is placed inside an alternating electric field, a part of that externally supplied energy is absorbed by the dielectric material, and thereby it is wasted for us in the form of heat energy. This loss of energy is regarded as dielectric loss, and it is due to the alternating or reversing nature of the alternating electric field. Since the electric field is alternating between positive and negative values, this phenomena occurs. Because when the electric field is alternating, then the direction of dipoles is also trying to be changed. It's also trying to alternate, and due to that some energy is lost, and that energy is called dielectric loss. This amount of energy depends on the frequency of the applied field. Hopefully you understand. Suppose for the first 5 minutes, electric field is along this direction for the first 5 minutes. So within these 5 minutes, this is how dipoles will be created and aligned. Now after 5 minutes, the electric field is altered. The electric field is reversed like this. Then the dipoles are changing their direction, and some amount of energy is lost, dielectric loss. Now instead of 5 minutes, if the electric field is changing within 5 seconds, that means for the 5 seconds electric field is along this direction. After 5 seconds it is changing the direction. Hopefully you understand. Then the process will be very quick. So the amount of loss will depends on this frequency, how fast the electric field is changing its direction. So it depends on the time period or the frequency of the electric field, and it also depends on the type of polarization occurs, whether it is electronic polarization, orientation polarization, or ionic polarization that is occurring. So this dielectric loss depends on these two quantities: frequency of the applied field and the type of polarization. There is the last part, which is called internal field or local field. Here we have discussed about gases. Now in case of solids, what happens? Solids are very close to each other. We know that within solid materials, the atoms are very closely packed. That means the separation between the atoms is very small. That means separation between the dipoles is very small. So whenever externally applied electric field is given to that material, when you supply some external electric field on this material, then dipoles are created, and dipoles are aligned in the direction of the electric field. Now the point is, not only the electric field will influence those dipoles, the neighboring dipoles will also influence its neighbor. That means if a dipole is, if you consider a single dipole, this dipole has other dipoles, neighbors around it. That dipole has dipole neighbors around it. Those neighbors will also influence the particular dipole in question. Therefore, for a single dipole, the electric field is not the only electric field applied. So for a single dipole, that means the dipole sees not only the electric field you have applied on this electric field, but the dipole sees this electric field plus the influence due to other dipoles. That means suppose there is one dipole here and it is surrounded by other dipoles, because we are talking about solids, so the separation between the dipoles is very small. So these other dipoles also influence this particular dipole in question. Therefore, from the side of this dipole as if sees the electric field which is supplied plus the influence of other dipoles, which in terms of polarization vector P. So for a single dipole, the total electric field, which is called internal field or local field, is sum of the externally applied field plus the influence from other dipoles in terms of polarization. At the beginning of dielectrics, we have talked about why we need to use dielectric material. And we have said that if there are two plates of a capacitor and there is only air in between them, then we get a certain amount of capacitance of that capacitor. And how we have measured the capacitance? We have measured it charge per unit potential difference between the two plates. So if we connect, that means if we connect these two plates with a battery, if we connect it with a battery and measure the potential difference, what we will observe that the battery will supply some amount of charges. So one plate will be positively charged, one will be negatively charged, but the amount of charge will be same in both the cases, only the one will be positive, other will be negative. And an electric field is developed between the two plates, whose manifestation is the potential difference. Now, how can we increase the capacitance? There are two ways. Either if we can increase the amount of charge, or if we can decrease the potential. Decrease the potential means if we can decrease the electric field. If we can decrease the electric field between the two plates. If we can decrease the electric field between the two plates, that means the potential difference will also be decreased, and as a result, capacitance can be increased. And that's why dielectric material is placed in between. Now observe it. Suppose these are the two plates. These are the two plates. Now when the two plates are connected with a battery, normal battery, we are not talking about alternating field. So one will be positive, one will be negative charge. That means there will be some charges here and same amount of negative charges will be here. Okay, and a potential difference is created in between due to because of this electric field. This positive charge, this negative charge, and electric field is there, and we get a particular amount of capacitance. Now what we are doing, we have placed a dielectric material in between. We have placed a dielectric material in between. These are the initially present negative charges. Now, what happens when you place the dielectric material here? This dielectric material will be polarized due to this electric field. This is the electric field acting as applied or external electric field on this dielectric material. So it will separate the positive and negative charges of the dielectric material. So the positive and negative charges will be aligned. If you remember, if this is your material and this is the direction of electric field, then this will be positive charge, that will be negative charge. That's how they will be separated. Now how here this is the direction of electric field. So this will be negative charge, this will be positive charge, negative charge, positive charge, negative charge, positive charge, so on. We know that all these charges are very close to each other, so they will balance each other. Only these surface charges are present. We call them as surface bound charges. Remember, so these are your surface bound charges. So there will be several surface bound charges created due to application of the electric field on this dielectric material. Am I right? So within this dielectric material, this region, there will be some charges, but they will cancel each other, leaving behind only the surface bound charges. Only these surface bound charges will be present. Now observe, this is the positive side and this is the negative side. So we can think there will be an electric field due to this polarization. This is the direction of polarization. This is the direction of polarization. So due to this polarization, there will be an electric field. Say EP, I am giving a name EP. EP is an electric field developed due to these positive and negative charges. Electric field is always from positive to negative charge. If this is positive charge, this is negative charge, then electric field must be from positive to negative charges. Since this is our positive charge, this is the negative charge, this will be the direction of the electric field generated. And how this electric field and why this electric field is generated? This electric field is generated due to the polarization vector. Because we know when you supply some electric field, then these charges are separated and we get polarization vector. And due to this polarization vector, we are getting this amount of electric field inside the dielectric material. Now you observe the external field and the electric field created due to polarization are opposite to each other. So net field, this will be the net field, E minus EP. E minus EP, say E dash, is the actual field after placing the polarization dielectric material, positive and negative charges of the capacitor. Okay. Now, when you connect this capacitor with a battery, then battery will supply charges. So one plate will be positively charged. Say this is the amount of positive charge. The other will be negatively charged with same amount. Okay. So one plate is positive charge, other plate is negative charge. And in that process, there will be an electric field. And what is the direction of electric field? Positive to negative. So that is the direction of the electric field. Now, what we want to do, we want to decrease this electric field. If we can decrease this electric field, then potential difference between positive and negative plate will also be decreased. Potential difference depends on electric field. So if electric field is decreased, potential difference can also be decreased. And if potential difference is decreased, capacitance can be increased. Our objective is to increase the capacitance of the capacitor. And for that, we are placing dielectric material in between the two plates. Say this is your dielectric material. And we know that the dielectric material are those materials which have the ability to be polarized under the application of an external electric field. That means when a dielectric material is placed inside an electric field, like this situation, this dielectric material is placed inside an electric field. There is an electric field. This is actually, this whole region can be considered as almost uniform electric field. This almost uniform electric field is applied within these two plates. Only near the edges is slightly bent, but within that material, field is uniform. So we are placing a dielectric material within that uniform electric field. Then what will happen? Depending on what type of dielectric material you are supplying, either dipoles will be created like nonpolar, or dipoles will be oriented like in case of polar. That means either electronic polarization will occur or orientation polarization will occur. Whatever type of polarization occurs, ultimately dipoles are oriented and aligned in the direction of the electric field. So this will be the positive side will be displaced from the negative charge. So positive, negative, positive, negative. That's how dipoles are created. So I am drawing several dipoles. So actually billions of dipoles will be created like this. Now the point is, all these dipoles, that means here there are so many chains of dipoles. All the chains are there. There are so many chains. So many chains are actually there. So many chains are there. Now the point is, the positive portion of one dipole and negative portion of the other dipole are very close to each other. So they will cancel each other. So all these will cancel each other. Only you observe the surface charges. The surface bound charges cannot be cancelled by other charges because there is no other charge present here. So only these charges survive which are near the surface. So these charges only survive which are near the surface. All the other will cancel each other like this. So only we have the surface bound charges like this. So we have only the surface bound charges. How the surface bound charges are created? Due to polarization. And why polarization occurs? Because we have placed the dielectric material inside an electric field. From our concept of dielectric, what we have learned that whenever dielectric material is placed inside an electric field, then the dipoles are aligned in the direction of electric field and polarization occurs. And the amount of polarization is called polarization vector P, which is N into small p. Small p is the dipole moment of a single dipole and N is the number of dipoles per unit volume. So what is what is polarization vector P? P is the total dipole moment per unit volume. P is the total dipole moment per unit volume. So whenever the dipoles are aligned we get a polarization vector P. That means for this particular material and for this electric field, we get a particular amount of polarization vector, because polarization vector depends, we can write it in other way as N alpha E, or we know that it can also be written as epsilon naught chi E, whatever be the form. P depends on electric field and P depends on some quantity which is entirely dependent on the material. Chi E, that is susceptibility of the material, polarizability of the material. So P vector depends on the material as well as the electric field. So for a particular type of material you have placed and the amount of electric field you have supplied, you get a particular amount of polarization vector P. So P is obtained, P is created. So we get a particular amount of polarization vector here. So due to this electric field, a polarization vector is created within the material. Okay, now this polarization vector is acting actually opposite to the electric field. This polarization vector is acting opposite to the electric field. What is that amount which is acting opposite? That amount is a portion of the polarization vector. That portion is actually estimated to be 3 epsilon naught. So I am not writing it. So you can say it is EP. This value, the polarization vector by 3 epsilon naught, I am giving it a name as EP. Why I am saying EP? Because if I divide polarization vector by epsilon naught, its unit becomes that of electric field. If you check the unit of electric field and check the unit of polarization vector, you will observe that their units are different. P and E have different units. P and E have different units because of the presence of chi epsilon naught. Chi has no unit. So how can you make the unit same? If I multiply epsilon naught with E, we get the unit of P. In other words, if I want to get the unit of electric field, what will do? I'll divide polarization vector by epsilon naught. Then I get the unit of electric field. So that is done here. Polarization vector by epsilon naught, and we get the unit in terms of electric field. And so my final point is that actually due to this polarization vector, an electric field is created. Why? Because you observe these are positive charges here. These are the positive charges within the material. These are the negative charges. And we know that there must be an electric field always from positive to negative charge. I am calling that field as EP. So due to polarization, you need not to bother about this thing. You only understand that due to this polarization, positive and negative charges are separated and we get some surface bound charges. That means there are positive charges at one side, negative charges on the other side. And since there are two opposite charges, there must be an electric field. We are calling that electric field is a EP. To remind us, this electric field is created due to a polarization. That's why I have written this P suffix. So now we have two electric fields. One is the externally applied electric field. This is the direction of the externally applied electric field. And we get another electric field due to polarization, which is EP, which is opposite to it. That means net field will be E minus EP. Say this is E dash. So what we observe that whenever a dielectric material is placed inside the two plates of the capacitor, or which is placed between the two plates of the capacitor, then electric field is reduced. Electric field is reduced. So if electric field can be reduced, now electric field is reduced between the two plates of the capacitor. That means potential difference between the two plates of the capacitor is reduced. As a result, capacitance is increased. Now capacitance is increased. So that's how capacitance of a capacitor can be increased whenever you place a dielectric material in between the two plates. It says that electronic polarizability of argon atom is this. Find the dielectric constant of solid argon. Okay. What is given? Given is density and atomic mass of argon. These two quantities are given. Why? We'll understand. First thing, electronic polarizability is supplied and we have to find out dielectric constant. when we have discussed the definition of different quantities associated with dielectric materials, we have found out the relation between first the dielectric constant and susceptibility, then polarizability and susceptibility, and finally polarizability and dielectric constant. So this is where we need to apply that relation, the relation between electronic polarizability and dielectric constant. And if you remember the expression, for that expression there is another quantity, and that quantity is the number of atoms or number of dipoles per unit volume. That is also required. So we require this n quantity also. If we know this n, we can easily estimate the dielectric constant from that relation. Now n is not supplied in this question directly. Instead, density and atomic mass are supplied. Density and atomic mass. So from density and mass, what quantity we can directly find out? We can find out the volume. We know density means mass per volume, that we know. Density is mass per volume. So if that density is density of the material, then the mass must be the atomic mass. So this is your mass of the atom or atomic mass, that is. So here you observe density and atomic mass both are supplied. That means what we can find out? We can find out the volume. So volume will be mass by density. So we can estimate the volume from this given data. What is the requirement of volume? Requirement is again the number of atoms. How will we find the number? If I know the volume, yes, we know. We know that Avogadro number is fixed, and Avogadro number is basically the number of atoms present in an atomic volume. That means within this volume, the number of atoms present is Na. So we can now estimate the number. So these quantities are supplied. So from that, we can find out the number of molecules per unit volume. So a small n can be estimated as number per volume. Number is Avogadro number and volume is Ma by rho. So if I say Ma or M, whatever you write, so that means this is actually, so n is actually written Na or n, whatever you write, by the volume. So volume is Ma by rho. So if you put the value, n will be this. So put the value of density. Density is 1.8 gram per CGS. Atomic mass is 35.94 gram per mole again CGS. And Avogadro number 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 is also in CGS. So when all the quantities are in CGS, your n comes out to be in centimeter, 1 by centimeter cube. That means centimeter to the minus 3. So first thing you need to do is to convert it into SI. So volume, the number of atoms per unit volume is actually estimated in CGS unit. You have to convert it into SI unit because all the other things are in SI. It is in SI. So if we convert the number of atoms per unit volume in SI, then rest is simple. You just need to use the formula. We know that relation between dielectric constant or relative permittivity epsilon R and polarizability is this. Here all the quantities are now known. Put the values, do the calculation and get the result.